and I'm founding Executive Director of the American Muslim Voice. Our mission is to foster friendships among all Americans and really change the culture of hate, division, despair with a culture of hope, inclusion, and peace. Every day, we just foster new relationships and nurture the old ones so we can have a peaceful, harmonious nation.
All right, good. Thank you very much. We'll introduce and then we'll start from my left.
My name is Shuja Ahmed. I represent Muslim Americans for Peace and Prosperity. Our goal and focus is to bring Muslims into the politics and help them, not only just the Muslims, but also people who support every ethnicity, and then stop any ethnicity that is being targeted because of their culture, religion, or their background. We also bridge gaps among all the other ethnicities such as Hindus, Christians, Jews, and then bring Muslims up to the speed that we are here for peace and prosperity. We are just like everybody else, helping our kids to grow and do a better job and become good citizens.
Thank you. Doctor?
Yeah. Professor Hatem Bazian. I'm representing a number of areas. I'm the Northern California Islamic Council Chair, which represents the Muslim community in the 5 Bay Area counties. I'm also a professor at UC Berkeley that I run the Islamophobia Research and Documentation Project that is part of the Asian American Studies and Center for Race and Gender, where we do research on Islamophobia in the US and globally. I'm also the co-founder of Zaytuna College, the first accredited Muslim liberal arts college, which is located in Berkeley. So again, we welcome many of you or all of you to come and visit us. And hopefully today I'll mention some of the projects that we are working on, both in the Muslim community as well as at UC Berkeley.
Great, thank you very much. Please.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zahra Billu. I'm the Executive Director of the Bay Area Office of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. We're the nation's largest American Muslim civil rights organization with over 30 offices in more than 20 states. Our mission is to promote justice, enhance the understanding of Islam, and empower American Muslims. And we do that by providing free and direct legal services to anyone facing discrimination, including hate crimes and bullying, working with the media to amplify authentic Muslim voices from within the community, working with elected officials like the ones we are here with today to ensure that they are passing laws that are protecting all of our communities, and then doing outreach and education inside and outside the Muslim community. Because if the people in this room are the only ones who know about our civil liberties and about the protections available to us, then they mean very little. And so we want to make sure that people know what their rights are, know what their responsibilities are, and can act accordingly.
Thank you very much. And they just have moved to a new home a few months ago. Monia?
Good morning. My name is Moina Shaikh. I'm a Fremont resident for the past 35 years. I'm very involved in interfaith work. I've been bringing people together through interfaith work for the past 2 decades. Currently, I serve as the president of the Tri-City Interfaith Council. More recently, I started Meet a Muslim Conversation, and like you heard from the speakers before me, education is the key, and that's what I'm trying to do, educate community, bringing people from diverse backgrounds together to help them understand differences and similarities between each of the ethnicities and the communities that are living, coexisting here in the area. Thank you
so much. I'm familiar with many of your organizations. I have to commend that you guys did a wonderful job. Before we start the conversation, I like to find out what did you teach the Muslim children or the community? How would you encourage them to learn, to understand the culture outside of the Muslim community? So with that, please, I'll ask Monia to start the comment.
So helping people to understand the culture within the greater community is very important because we are part of this community, whether we are Muslims or non-Muslims. And so just getting them to feel that, this is your new home, this is where you need to get involved. And since 9/11, Muslims are living in fear. They are very fearful. They don't want to get engaged. They don't want to get up and get involved because they don't know what to expect from the community and from everybody around them. So just helping them, encouraging them to getting involved, because we need to have a chair at the table. And my work mainly is helping, like I said, the greater community to understand that, we are part of this community. We have been here for a long, long time. And we just, our kids are going to school. We need to have the same, everything for everybody. Everybody should feel safe, should feel belonged. There is a Muslim kid or a non-Muslim kid, doesn't matter. Every kid should have the feeling of belonging when they go to school. They shouldn't be bullied. They shouldn't feel out of place.
I just recently visited a Muslim school, and I'm really happy to know that they are teaching the kids about other religions, the religions around the world. So I think that's a really, really a very good entry point for the student to understand, because we are, we as an immigrant, myself included, always hungry to ask people to understand our culture. And I think it's equally important for me to understand what they're coming from. Sir, you have
Yeah, I think just speaking from Zaytuna College, which is the first Muslim liberal arts college in the U.S., located in Holy Hill in the Graduate Theological Union. And just October 20th, we became a member of the GTU. It's 9 Christian denominations. They have a Buddhist center, they have a Jewish center, they also have a Hindu center. And Bob, you spoke about Aristotle. Actually, in our curriculum, we teach Aristotle. The faculty that teaches rhetoric for us is actually a Franciscan monk. Our faculty that teaches U.S. constitutional law is the lawyer for the Catholic diocese. So at least when we graduate our students as higher education in a Muslim institution, we're actually integrating and working with all of the religious institutions, because again, if we could do it in here, there's no other place in the world where those possibilities can materialize. And I invite, again, people to see what we're doing at Zaytuna College, rather than, again, the perceptions that is out there that we are not fully contributing to the society in many different ways. And the majority of Muslims are actually US born. So again, with about 32% to 35% are African Americans in terms of the population. So again, how we locate the Muslims is an important question.
Right, great. Rita?
Yes. So I believe that first education starts as soon as your child is born. How you will behave around your children and how you relate to your neighbors and everybody else would have a huge impact about what they will learn. All these kids who are bullying, they don't know what bullying is. They don't know how to put down kids. They learn that from their parents, grandparents, their friends that are coming, having discussions. So-and-so is wetback, so-and-so is terrorist, so-and-so is not, loyal to the nation and all that. This is where it starts. So I will urge my fellow Americans to please be careful. Children are sponges. Whatever you will say in your homes, they will pick it up. And they will take it to the school. And you were asking about that, how parents should react. One of the questions I had, what if the teacher is the one who is putting you down? That is a very serious question. And we know, CARE knows, we know that how much children are suffering because how the teachers are treated.
Sure.
I'd like to, bring up some recent incident that happened just yesterday in New York. And then just a few weeks ago, another incident happened in Vegas. So those two should be looked at as just some mentally disturbed people who have done that. Just because one person seems to be Muslim and he's saying Allahu Akbar does not mean that he's mentally sane. Islam does not teach all that. Islam actually says that, killing one human being is like killing the whole humanity. So we need to spread that, you know, don't look at one individual representing an ethnicity or a religion. He's just mentally disturbed. Look at it that way. Just the way it was looked at, this gentleman who killed like 59 people and, I don't know, injured over 200 people.
Assemblymember.
Yes, great.
So I agree with a lot of what's been said, but I wanted to add that we teach young Muslims that their culture is American culture, that Muslims have been in the country since it was founded, that a third of the slaves who were brought over in the most horrific conditions of human history were Muslim. And so when we speak to young Muslim youth, one, we remind ourselves and them that they're not all immigrants, that they are a part of this country, that they built the monuments and the plantations that are now part of this country's history. And then beyond that, for us what that means is that they don't have to shed any part of their culture to be fully American. And that being American for these youth, the way we teach them, includes knowing their rights, getting involved, protesting, dissenting, right? But being part of the civic fabric is what is most important for us when we talk to Muslim youth. Because if they're frustrated, if they're feeling bullied, if they're seeing what's happening on television, and they don't know the very American avenues to challenge those things, then they grow up feeling unsafe, feeling othered, and feeling unwanted. And so for us, the way we counter that is by teaching them not necessarily about other cultures or the need to celebrate different holidays, but rather to teach them the American practices of protest, engagement, and dissent.
Great, thank you. Back to the community needs and resources. Samina, you have something to share?
Sure. So again, the community need is one of the same for everybody, just like number one is that feeling of acceptance. Please do not tolerate us. We are not cancer, we are not DMV lines, we are not strep throat. We are all human beings and all of us have to be equally accepted. The question my fellow Americans need to ask, how many friends do you have that don't look like you? That should be a good gauge to see whether you're truly accepting everybody. I'm proud to say I have a friend, and when I say friend, it means close friends in every race and religion that there is. So then that's the gauge we have to have, that's the bar we have to have. Once we do that, our nation truly would be a united nation. We need to put united back in the United States of America. Right now we are the divided nation. So that's our need. Another need is that when you are there, I will just say I am in Palo Alto for the past 35 years. I love my city. I'm serving them. I open my home, as Kansen knows, that I invite the whole community, the whole world. I want to have a problem one day that I run out of food. I haven't had that problem yet. So when I invite, a lot of my neighbors, close neighbors would come, but the ones that are a little bit far, no. But then people would come from San Francisco, they would come from Monterey, they would come from Pacifica. Why? Because they have gotten to know me. Please open your minds, open your hearts, open your homes, and get to know each other. That's what my urgent request to all of you is.
I'm trying, Samina opened up her home every year,
For many of us.
for anybody, to show up, to have, sharing some of their food and their cultures, and I was very honored to be invited a couple of times in the last 35 years. I'm not 35 years old yet, so I'm
And I just want to add one quick thing. You were asking if Muslims invite, other people, not just the politicians. We invite everybody. Especially I can speak for myself. I invite everybody in my home. Matter of fact, we have the other event coming up on December 16th, is Saturday. United Methodist Church in Palo Alto will be hosting us again this year, and we are going to share our Eid festival. So all of my fellow Americans are invited to come have gourmet free lunch and enjoy the cultural, performance by the kids and all that. That's what I need. That's the need for the community. And it's not Muslim community's needs, it's America's need.
Same thing with us also. We came into existence just last year. Actually, October, we just finished one whole year for ourselves. We have done about 8 events, and all of them were free dinners. We invite people to come and meet and greet. Honorable Kansen has been to 1 or 2 of our events also, and gave us a little certificate. And some of the mosques also do that. Our mosque at Lowry, they do open house for all the Americans or non-Muslims to come and share iftar with us. Other than that, Sister Moina is doing a great job having Muslims to non-Muslims to understand Muslims. This is what it is: Muslim Americans for peace and prosperity. We are here for peace, and we spread love, and we get love. That's the bottom line.
All right, the Senator has a question.
I guess we've received this Institute for Social Policy and Understanding
ISCU.
2017, and I think it's amazing to me how ignorant I can be, or I think the public at large can be, where you talk about the different races of Muslims, saying 25% are black, 24% are white, 18% are Asian, 18% are Arab, 7% are mixed use, and 5% are Hispanic. So there's just this idea of what the typical Muslim looks like in the public. The other interesting fact is within the Muslim community, the challenges that you have between incidences between the black Muslims and the white Muslims and the Hispanic Muslims and this thing. Again, completely ignorant of that. On the I guess the call of resources, how can we, as the law enforcement and the district attorneys in the state of California, how can we help you guys on helping Muslims educate Muslims? I guess I don't know how I would put the question, but it's an interesting, when you look at it statistically, it's something I had no idea that was the fact.
So maybe I could jump into that conversation.
Please.
First, again, let me thank you, Honorable Chu and Senator Wieckowski, for both being in this hearing and also putting together and participating in a select committee on hate crime, especially at a time where nationally the debate is almost not wanted to discuss the issues, as well as everybody is saying free speech, but really they don't want to listen. And that's, I think, where the conversation is, how we could get to listen to some of the issues that are confronting us. In 2013, I did with my colleague, Senzai, a study about the Bay Area Muslim community, which is a benchmark. Just in terms of Islamophobia, 77% said it's a serious or somewhat serious problem. 60% said they knew someone who had been discriminated against. 40% said that they had been personally discriminated against. 50% reported knowing someone who was a hate crime victim. And then 23% of Muslims indicated that they themselves were victims of hate crime. So 23%, again, and that's the issue in terms of that our statistics that are put out by our agencies do not represent the full picture of what is taking place, because just like in cases of rape, only a small number of people actually report, because the structure itself actually often blames the victims. And this is essentially some of the experiences relative to Muslims and how to begin to deal with it. Now for this, actually, we're actually releasing an app, reporting Islamophobia, that will be national, where individuals on a national level, wherever you are, you will be able to actually report the incident. And we will be able to have monthly incident report by regions, by districts. We also are doing a Twitter feed in relation to where people are using discriminatory language to see what is taking place in these areas, to have a blotting, because often this conversation on the internet and social media leads to actions that are taking place. What I want...
Yeah, I guess the question is that you said, in the general public, at least the report is that the different Muslim communities, half of the the discrimination, race-based discrimination, is from the general public, but a third of it is Arab Muslims and African American Muslims, which is something, I don't know if we all know that.
No, we know, I think, again, Muslims are a reflective of the broader society. So the fact that you have Arab, African American racial tension should not be exceptionalized, but rather upon the norms in America that we have this racial hierarchy that is there. And I think some work has to be done in relation to what are the broader issues relative to racism that affects the different communities and how different communities are set against each other. And I think that's an area that we do need to work, but it has to be worked upon within the broader arena relative to racial tensions that exist, whether it's Arab versus African Americans versus white, and so on. And I think some of us are doing that work specifically to deal with intra-Muslim relations in order to address these issues. Now, I know that we have some limited time, so let me say what are the asks or what are the things that we could do. The issue of Islamophobia is, again, it's an issue for all civil society, and hate crime is an issue of all civil society, not for the victims. So the fact that we're Muslims and speaking about it, we're just putting it on the table for civic leaders. So civic leaders, civil society institutions should take the lead in addressing issues of hate and discrimination because you're the trustees of the community. Educational institutions in particular, time and time again, the educational institutions are not responding appropriately, and that has to be from the top-bottom model. And we're working on a report that actually is going to go to say, how do you create a hate-free and Islamophobia-free classroom in order to actually train the trainer. This will go to superintendents as well as training of the teachers, because they do have to do general training, and in such, how to do that from the top-bottom rather than only when the child is expressing something. You actually have to preempt that process by educational institution. The other area is public health. As you know, possibly one of the primary area of contact with Muslims, for people who don't know, is actually with your doctor, because there's a large number of a doctor in many cities. The Muslim doctors are there in the hospital, but they actually are facing Islamophobia from the patient as well as from their other staff. So another area that we're doing research is how to actually deal with Islamophobia and hate crime from a public health issue, to train doctors and institutions that are providing public health, both to recognize the victim, that actually a person who has faced Islamophobia, and what are those recognitions that we need to recognize, and then also to provide training top-bottom rather than grassroots up. So that's again, and then trying to actually do work on media and social media in particular, which is really, really very difficult, because on a slow day, 10 stories are negative about Muslims. On a busy day, the whole news is about you. And therefore, the indirect seeping of hatred that is coming in there that creates tension, depressions, and so on, and I think that's important to recognize. Lastly, we do work, we have the only Islamophobia Studies journal anywhere in the world from UC Berkeley, and we run the Islamophobia Consortium, which has 26 universities and centers engaged in the research. So the research we actually produce, it says data to impact policy. Because without data, we're only dealing with feelings. So we actually want to have data on every aspect of what we're producing in order to affect policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing those resources to us. Any other comments?
So Senator Wieckowski asked what is the role of law enforcement in some of this? And I wanted to raise up the conversation around why people don't go to law enforcement when they experience a hate crime. Many members of the Muslim community are worried about deportations, they're worried about surveillance, they're worried about profiling, and they're worried about bias. And over the years, there's been a lot of effort to build those relationships or to make sure that law enforcement has the necessary cultural competence to serve the diverse communities that it works in. But oftentimes the gap has actually been around federal cooperation, right? So if local police are cooperating with ICE, then a targeted community member is not going to call that police department for fear of deportation. If local police departments are participating in the joint terrorism task forces, which all of them are except San Francisco PD right now in this region, without any accountability measures, and the only other department with an accountability measure is Oakland Police Department, then people aren't going to call the police when they experience a hate crime for fear of surveillance. Now, Senate Bill 54, which I know both of you supported and we appreciate, moves us in the right direction. But we know that sheriff's departments in California did not come out in support of Senate Bill 54, and that it was really contentious. We know that Senate Bill 31 was signed on the last possible day by Governor Brown, and that's the one that said that California and California's agencies won't participate in a Muslim registry should it come to that. And seeing that Donald Trump is tweeting this morning about sending Americans to Guantanamo, you know, it does not escape me that that's a very real possibility in the near future. And so the role that law enforcement can play, in addition to being responsive to hate crimes when those are reported or having cultural competency in place, is to understand that the way that they interact with the federal government, particularly in this moment, it was urgent during the Obama administration, it's even more urgent now, impacts whether or not people are going to call law enforcement to begin with. So if we have all of the right hate crimes protocols in place, and we have the cultural competency, but we know that the police chief or the sheriff or someone is cooperating closely with ICE, or is in regular contact with the FBI and has deputized officers participating in the Joint Terrorism Task Force without any accountability, then it's near impossible for us to get our community members to call for help.
If I may ask, because I know that one of the biggest problems we have, or people have towards recruiting workers is Border Patrol, because it's a crappy job and nobody wants it. And so a lot of it is fear versus the actual hordes of Border Patrol agents coming in. So I'm wondering, because we've had the Trust Act for years in California, and we've obviously it may be insufficient given the international or the national dialogue. But do the cities have those resources to actually implement or cooperate at that level with ICE, or is it just an apprehension that the community has? Because you know we always hear that we need more resources just for basic, you know, police services or education, or you know, from a funding, from a budgetary point of view. So
I'll give you well, I would say there's two parts to this. The first is, unfortunately, every time a protection does come into place, the community sees the resistance that law enforcement has often put up. So law enforcement did not get on board with the Trust Act or the Truth Act or the Values Act until very late in the game, and the community sees that. And every time a protection comes into place, the federal government moves forward and revamps the program. It's why we went from, I believe, the Trust Act to the Truth Act to now the Values Act, right? And so we're on our third iteration just around immigration enforcement. So that's the first piece. I would say the second piece is, it's not that departments lack capacity to cooperate, right? We don't want them to cooperate in a way that violates our community's rights, but it doesn't escape me that we're sitting in Alameda County, where the sheriff is known for having supported the appointment of Jeff Sessions, for having opposed the California Values Act, for having retweeted a white supremacist and left it up for 10 hours, apparently because someone in that department didn't know how to use Twitter, right? And is now on schedule to receive, I believe, something in the range of $400,000 to $500,000 from the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security to allegedly counter violent extremism through a program that's been criticized by the Brennan Center, the ACLU, CARE, and many other civil rights organizations. And so I wish it were just as simple as them saying we stand with immigrants, but even when they say that, which the Alameda County Sheriff I don't think has, and instead has said the opposite, it's actually the policies and practices that impact the community, which the community sees. But I can tell you that I would have a hard time convincing a Muslim in Alameda County to call the sheriff's office for help.
Yes.
Or an undocumented person, or a black person, or any of these other targeted groups.
any unincorporated parts of the county. I represent that area.
Well, that fear, I just want to share with you also happens in Santa Clara County, although Santa Clara is being very progressive. But, earlier this year, we noticed that those students applying for the Cal Grant dropped. And those students registered for the free and reduced meal dropped because of their parents are so afraid of being called out by the ICE. So this is a problem that we are trying to do our shares in Sacramento, and that's why you named those bills. But it's also a process, it's an education process. We have to share with a lot of my constituents that although we cannot put that fear around those undocumented people, because they could provide a good eyes and ears for the police, peace officers to combat the crime. Once you shut them out, you know, then it's really bad for the crime fighting and the peace officers. But thank you for your perspective. Yes?
Can I share?
Maria?
So coming to Senator Wieckowski's point that there are such diverse Muslim population, people think that when they're looking around that they will find somebody looking like me or Zara as a Muslim woman. 80% of Muslim women in the US don't cover like we do, don't wear the hijab. And now you know all these different ethnicities, so there could be a number of Muslims in this room that you don't even know about. And that's why the statistics show, the studies show that 70% of Americans have never met a Muslim. I'm sure they have met a Muslim, but they don't know that person is a Muslim. But also when you know a Muslim, you have Muslim friends, you don't ask questions of them. And that's where I'm coming, my work is coming into play, where I'm providing that platform for people to come and ask any question without being judged, without feeling that they have a dumb or stupid question, just to ask a question of a Muslim and know a Muslim and meet a Muslim personally, interact with one. And so that's what I have been doing since San Bernardino. I started these Meet a Muslim conversations just around coffee shops here in Fremont, and the first event drew over 100 people. It just shows that how people are thirsty, they want to learn, they want to meet a Muslim. And that's a very promising thing. And like Zara said, they're afraid. Muslims are very afraid. They're afraid of being bullied. They're afraid that somebody will say, go back home. You know, they're afraid of being harmed physically. They're afraid at the airports. I don't read a book on Islam on the plane anymore, which I like to try to educate myself. I just don't, because I'm afraid the fellow passenger next to me might report it, and the next thing I know, I'll be out if the plane is still on the ground. Or, you know, so these fear factors have to be tackled. People need to learn and educate and understand. And then again, education is what we put emphasis on.
Yes, Dr.
Should I just say that in one study that one of our partners did in France, that 80% of Islamophobic or targeting Muslims actually was women being targeted. And therefore, when often Muslim women are targeted, we don't focus on their womanhood, we focus only on their Muslimness, and therefore the issue becomes almost diverted rather than put it under the category of violence against women. It becomes that we look at their Islamishness and not really put it under the category of violence against women. And this is something, a study that we're going to do to look at how Muslims are the primary site, Muslim women are the primary site of violence that is committed, verbal abuse and insult.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much.